Masechet Yoma, Daf Tet Vav 15. Three main topics today. First, we're going to continue speaking about the order of the items done in the morning, Ketoret, and then preparing the lamps, or lamps and then Ketoret. We'll see another solution to that. And then we're going to talk about the sprinkling of the blood of the Tamid, how exactly it's done. And then we're going to talk about the sheep chamber. All these involve contradictions between two different Mishnayot. While we're on the topic of contradictions in Mishnayot, and by solving it, that one is one author and one is a different author, so we bring in yet another case of the placement of the sheep chamber in the Bet HaMikdash. So we start off with the first. We saw yesterday that there is a contradiction between Mishnah in Masechet Yoma chapter 1 and chapter 2. In chapter 1, when it's talking about the Kohen Gadol, all 7 days, he has to do everything to prepare. So you remember he learns how to do everything because he's going to have to do all the services on Yom Kippur. And there it lists Ketoret first, right? Burning the incense first, and then preparing the lamps. But yet in Mishnah Perek Bet, where it's talking about the lotteries, it says you do the lottery first for the Kohen that will do the lamps, and then the Ketoret. So that's a contradiction. We're going to see today that there's yet another Mishnah in chapter 3 of Masechet Yoma, was actually describing the things that he's going to do, and there it mentions Ketoret first, and then the lamps. So we have three Mishnayot here that we have to find a way to line up. We saw already one answer to all this yesterday, even though we didn't see Mishnah 3. Abaye said the lamps are not prepared altogether. There's 7 altogether, so 5 are first, then you do prepare the Ketoret in the middle, and then there's 2 after. And so then that whatever you can reconcile everything here. When we say the lamps first, that's talking about the 5 lamps, and then the Ketoret in the middle. And the other sources, this one is talking about Ketoret first, and then the lamps are the 2 lamps that come after. And actually makes sense, because since the second one's talking about the lottery, well, yeah, for the lottery, you're going to have to pick a guy who's going to do all the lamps first, because he has to do the 5 first. But then you do the Ketoret. But really, the main thing that especially the Kohen Gadol is going to do are the 2 lamps to finish it off. So it actually makes sense, his reconciliation. Okay, so that's one. We saw Abba Shaul has a whole nother opinion that we don't have to get back to. But now we're going to see Rav Papa offers another solution to the contradiction using Abba Shaul. And that is maybe one Mishnah 1 is Rabanan, and Mishnah 2 is Abba Shaul, because he says that the Ketoret comes all the way at the end after all of them. So Mishnah 2 can be Abba Shaul, and so he can reconcile them by being different authors. That's what we're going to start off with. Rav Papa Amar. La Kashya Harabanan Ha-Abba Shaul. Mishnah chapter 1 is Rabanan, chapter 2 is Abba Shaul. B'mayokim tal matnitin dahacha kerabanan. Pais Abba Shaul. So which one is which? Right? Our Mishnah is Rabanan, the one that's talking about choosing the lottery in chapter 2. That's Abba Shaul. And now, Ema Sefa. Now we're going to bring in chapter 3. Chapter 3 is giving all the details. Havi'u lo et Tamid. The Kohen Gadol, right, on Yom Kippur, he's doing everything himself. He has help, but he has to perform every service basically by himself. So first they bring him the Korban Tamid. And what does he do? Keraso merek acher shechita al yado. He does the slaughter, but he doesn't finish. Usually one Kohen would do the entire slaughter. In this case, the Kohen Gadol has to not only slaughter, but also get a bucket to receive the blood. So, he has to play ping pong with himself and run around to the other side. So he only begins it, and then and someone else will complete it. And nichnas la'aktir Ketoret, then he goes and offers the incense, ulhetib et hanerot, and then he prepares the menorah. So you see here that you have Ketoret and then menorah. So atan Rabanan, this agrees with Rabanan, right? And that would like Mishnah 1, we have Ketoret first and then the lamps. So that's a question to Abba Shaul. Abba Shaul. Now you have to say that, right? Mishnah 1 and 3 are Rabanan, and Mishnah 2 is Abba Shaul. We're okay with having multiple authors of Mishnayot, but you'd want some kind of clean break, not go back and forth between them. So that's a difficulty for Rav Papa's answer. Bishlama Abaye, so he says, he says, yes, I indeed say that. I don't mind it going back and forth, even though there's multiple authors. So now we're going to analyze each one. How come they disagree with the other? Bishlama Abaye lo amar kerav papa, yeshav v'sefer Rabanan mesiyata Abba Shaul lamakim mokim le. Abaye doesn't like Rav Papa's answer, because Rav Papa has to say that it switches off Rabanan, Abba Shaul, Rabanan, and so that doesn't make sense that they should change authors so often. So that's why Abaye disagrees. But why doesn't Rav Papa accept Abaye's answer? Rav Papa is a student of Abaye's, the next fifth generation, Abaye's fourth generation, so he knew of it. Why didn't he accept Abaye's answer, which seems perfectly fine, that you divide between 5 and then 2? Amar lach, Tana beresha hatabat shete nerot, v'hadar hatabat hamesh nerot. He said, why didn't he say like Abaye that the first one is so the Papa could say to you that he doesn't like this, that first is talking about the 5 nerot and is talking about the 2 nerot, right? You're also adding words that it doesn't say there. When it says lamps here, that's talking about the 5. The 2. When it says lamps here, that's talking about the 5. He uses the same word, so that's kind of confusing, and so he doesn't like adding all those words in. And Abaye could say, you know what, I don't even have to go that far. I could just say as follows. Mishnah 1 is giving you the general teachings of, look, on this day, he's going to have to do the Ketoret and the lamps. It's not being particular about the exact order, right? That's Mishnah 1, giving a general overview. And then was talking about the details of how you're going to bring the lottery. Well, the lottery, you have to do the lamps first, because he begins with the 5 lamps. And then Mishnah 3, when you're talking about the Kohen Gadol actually doing it, he actually does the last 2 lamps. And so he can reconcile and say that he's not really adding too many words to it. And that's why Abaye backs up his own position. Okay, so we finished with that. And now we get to the next topic, which is the sprinkling of the Tamid. Gufa, we already mentioned this machloket yesterday. Now we're going to quote it in full and analyze it fully. Ba lo lekeren mizrachit sefonit, noten mizrachit sefonit. So when the Kohen Gadol is sprinkling the blood of the Korban Tamid, first he goes to the northeast corner and then to the southwest corner. So northeast corner and southwest corner. Noten ma'aravit deromit, and he sprinkles on the corner, and that way it splashes on the 2 sides, kind of like this. Right, so basically it's the other corner first, the opposite corner, and then this corner here. This is the southwest corner, and he sprinkles it on the corner, and then it splashes on the 2 sides. That way, it's 2 sprinklings with 4 walls. That is the first opinion. That's the Mishnah. That's Rabanan. However, Rabbi Shimon, he says no. The Korban Tamid is done in a different way. How? He agrees with the first part of it, that you start with northeast and you put it on the corner, and that covers 2 walls. Maravit deromit noten ma'arava v'achar kach noten daroma. However, as he's walking around, he always walks counterclockwise. So we took care of the far corner here. As he's walking around, he'll do this side, and then he'll do the south side. Separately. Maravit and Deromit does separately. So why does he disagree? Why does he say that? Okay, in order to introduce his answer, a little bit of background about the different korbanot. Generally, the korban olah is sprinkled with 2 corners, but each corner will spread on 4. All 4 walls, and it's done below this red line. That's Korban Tamid. Korban Hatat is different. The Korban Hatat has to be sprinkled above this red line, preferably even on the corners here on top of the horns. And that one has 4 sprinklings, 1 on each side. So those are the 2 differences between Olah and Hatat. So really what Rabbi Shimon Ish HaMispah is doing is, he's taking the olah and saying the tamid and saying we're going to do it half as an olah. That's the first sprinkling, is just like a regular olah, but the other one that's on this side is going to be kind of like a korban chatat, in that it's one wall and then the other wall, even though it's below the line. So that's similar to olah. So he's adding in an element of the chatat into the korban tamid. So it's basically an olah, but a little bit of a chatat. Why is he doing all that? Amar Rabbi Yochanan mishum achad deber Rabbi Yanai amar kera u'sa'ir azim echad lechatat Adonai al olat hatamid yaseh v'nisko. This is the pasuk from the Musaf of Rosh Chodesh. On Rosh Chodesh, you bring a seed azim echad lechatat. That's a chatat offering. And the simple reading of this pasuk is you bring the Musaf goat in addition, al olat tamid. Don't think that you're going to bring this on Rosh Chodesh instead of the olat tamid. You bring it in addition. That's the word al means. But he reads the word al with more significance, and he says that you take a little bit of the chatat procedure and you add it to the olat tamid. Right? That's al olat tamid. So here he says, right? Olahi v'amarachamana abed b'maaseh chatat. What do we need this whole pasuk? I mean, I guess he thinks that we don't really need a pasuk to teach us that you have to do korban tamid. Isn't that obvious? So this pasuk is just juxtaposing chatat and the korban tamid to tell you that yes, it is an olah, but do a little bit like a chatat. Hakesad. The first sprinkling is going to be over here in the northeast. And that will be the regular olah on the corner, which is called shtaim shehen k'maaseh olah. Shtaim shehen shetaim k'maaseh hatat. Hakesad, right? Noten achat shehi shetaim k'maaseh olah. So you give one sprinkling, that's two, because it goes on both walls. That's like an olah. And then when you go around, shetaim shen shtaim keheh k'maaseh chatat. You do two sprinklings, one here, like you would for a chatat. Although it's below the line, so it's not exactly like a chatat, which would have been above the line. Okay, so that's what he says. Now we're going to ask him a whole bunch of questions of different ways he could have done something like this. Why doesn't Rabbi Shimon do two entire sets of sprinklings? Once like an olah, meaning one sprinkling on this corner, one sprinkling in that corner, and then go around again and do each of the four walls, right? So that we did the whole thing like an olah, and then again the whole thing like a chatat. How do you know you should be combining and do half-half rather than doing it twice? The answer is Lo masinu damim shemechaperin v'chozin mechaperin. Well, we never had we don't have any precedent that once you put the blood on, that atones. So you never find a case where you have to atone and then you go again and atone. Well, which one did it? The first one or the second one? There's no precedent for that. So that's the answer. We question this. You're saying, tell me there's no precedent. Is there a precedent for doing something that's half like a chatat and half like an olah? There's no precedent for that either. So why did you say that we do this? Ela al korchan hikishana katuv. So you'll tell me that the pasuk forced it upon us by combining, juxtaposing chatat and olah, is telling us you have to do something that's half-half. That's what you're saying. I could say the pasuk is forcing us to give this interpretation and do it twice. First like an olah, and then do the whole thing again like a chatat. So just because there's no precedent, right? There's no precedent for you either. So we answer that. Hatam pisuk matanot ba'almahi. Says no. This is different than when Shimon Isha Mispah is talking about. He's just dividing the sprinklings. That's much less of a chidush to say you do half of this and half that. To go and say you do the whole thing twice, that's a much bigger chidush. So we're gonna find the simplest way and not assume something that's so radical. All right, fine. Yeah, we solved that problem. Next problem. V'neteh b'chachi shetayim lemata k'maaseh olah. Shetayim shehen shetayim lemala k'maaseh hatat. Well, now the question is, why don't we sprinkle one that's two below? Right? That's like the olah. This is what we do the first one, and then we should do the two that's two above the line, right? If you're going to say the first two are like olah, fine. The second two are like chatat. If it's really chatat, then they should be above the line, because chatat is always above the line. And yet you're saying that all of them are below the line. So even the second two sprinklings are like kind of half like a chatat in that they're on both sides, but half like an olah because you're doing it under the line. How come you don't do it above the line? That's the next question. The answer is Lo masinu damim shechesan lemala v'chesan lemata. We have no precedent. We never find in any other case that you would do half the sprinkling above that red line and half below. It's either always all above or always all below. So we want to stick to that, and that's why he says we're going to leave them all below. Now we question that. Velo, is that true that we never do half, some above and some below? Good. Now we get to the famous part of the Yom Kippur Avodah, right? When the Kohen Gadol brings the blood of his own par, and he takes it in and he sprinkles it a number of times. He sprinkles it in front of the Ketoret, and he does 1 up and 7 down, right? And then he does it on the Parochet, and then he does it on the Mizbach HaKetoret. And so you see there that he does it 1 up and 7 down. So doesn't that mean, right? There you go, 1 above the line, 7 below the line. So you do find, well, it's not the line there. I mean, he's doing it on the kaporet, the thing that's covering the aron with the kirubim on it. But there you go, there's 1 above and 7 below, right? We answer, no, kimaslif. Right? He's not actually directing it 1 above, 1 below, but rather he's doing it like maslif. What does that mean? Like maslif. Machbe Rav Yehuda keman gedana. Rav Yehuda demonstrated with his hand. All right, we can't see it, we don't have video, but it means like someone with the whip, meaning he does it like this and like this, but the point is that he gets it in a line. Actually, he doesn't even sprinkle it on the kaporet itself. It actually goes on the floor, but he does it towards. And the point is that he does the first one above, he sets a marker, and the next one he goes down the line. When the Bet Din used to whip someone on the back, so they would start on top of his back and then go down his back, right? So you make a line, that's the point. It's not one on above some line or below some line. That's the point. Achat lemala means the top bar, and then each one further a little bit down, a little bit down. So therefore, there's no precedent here for going for having 1 above and 1 below. That's not actually what those words mean. So now velo. Now we question this again, right? Really, is there no? Here's another case. V'hatinan hizamimenu al tahoro shel mizbeach sheva pe'amim. After the Kohen Gadol sprinkles that blood of his par inside the Kodesh Kodashim, he goes out into the Hechal and he puts it on the Mizbach HaKetoret. And here it says he sprinkles it on the tahoro, on its pure part of the mizbeach. We'll see what that means 7 times. So what does that mean? My love apalged mizbeach kedamre inashe tahar tihara hu palgad Yoma. So the word tahoro, it means in its brightest. Like people say, in the middle of the day, noon is called the brightest part of the day. So doesn't that mean he sprinkles it at the midline of the mizbeach? And by doing that, if it's always directing towards the midline, some will go above and some will go below. So now we do have a precedent for one set of sprinklings, and that are half above and half below. And therefore, that would be a good precedent for our case also on the outside mizbeach, that you could do half below and half above, right? No. Amar Abba Shela la agufe de mizbeach tichtiv uchesem hashamayim la tohar. When the Mishnah mentions that you put it on the purity of the mizbeach, it didn't mean on the side, but rather on the top, right? As we see a pasuk in Shemot, esem hashamayim la tohar. The sky, when you're looking above, is called tohar, the purity. And so you see, like in this picture, he's taking some of the blood from his pot and putting it right on top of the mizbeach. And so it's not talking about on the side or the midline. So therefore, we have no precedent anywhere else for ever giving a sprinkling half above and half below. And that's why the Bishimon says, I'm going to do them all below, even though the second two are kind of like a chatat offering. Next question. How come he said first you do the 2 on the corner, it will be this corner here, and that would be like the olah, and then you go around and you do 1 and 1, which is chatat and chatat. Why don't you change the order and do the other way around? Answer, kevan de olahi, he kadma beresha. The korban tamid is fundamentally an olah. we're just adding a little bit of chatat to it. So that makes sense. They should do olah first and then the chatat element. Next question. They're not letting him go. They're asking him every possible detail. How come here you do mizrachit sefonit first, right? That's this north east is here, and then you go to ma'aravit derumit, and then you go around and do this corner. Netev derumit mizrachit v'adas sefonit ma'aravit. Why don't you do why don't you do this corner first, right? Deromit mizrachit, yep, and then do the other one. Why switch them around? Amre ola teona yesod v'keren deromit mizrachit hava lahava leyesod. The answer is because an olah, when you're doing it below the line, not only has to be below the line, actually has to be at a spot where there is a base. I'll show you another picture where you can see it clearer. Here. So what you see is on this side, there's a ramp, so because the kohen sometimes has to walk around on this level. So here you have a ramp that goes around on this side and that side, and so there's no base here. Whereas if you go around here, there is this base, and so that's why we need to do it there, because we need it to have a base when we do that part. Okay.
Rabbi, what happens on that ledge level?
What happens on that ledge level? I'm guessing that he would be able to reach the corners here, right? From the other, if he stands on the floor, he wouldn't be able to reach the top. Okay. He also puts.
Why did the northeast get two? Meaning what was the combination northeast two, and then you go 1 and 1? Why doesn't it just go 2 here and then go 2 here? Now you got all 4 corners. Why bother with?
Well, because the chatat offering does it on separate walls. Because so we want the one that's 2, that's like an olah. The 2 that's 4, the 2 that's 2, that's chatat. So we want to introduce an element of chatat. So it's got to be on separate walls.
Okay.
So now the question is, why do you do on the northeast and then the southwest? Why not? Why not start on the southwest, which would be here? And then go to the northeast. So because there's a general principle that whenever you go to a corner, you should always go to the right. That doesn't mean turn right. It means he's always facing the Mizbeach. So if you're facing Mizbeach, then the thing to the right is actually going around counterclockwise. So it's actually always making a left. So therefore, he has to always go around that way. This is interesting because I think this is the precedent for nowadays when we take out the Sefer Torah, we go around the Teva always counterclockwise, even though you're making lefts, but technically if you turn it around, you're moving to the right if you're actually facing the Teva in the middle. Okay. How do you know that it's telling that this brings together olah and chatat? How do you know it's telling you that the korban tamid, which is an olah, that you should introduce a chatat element to it? Maybe it's telling you that the korban chatat, which is the musaf, that you should introduce an olah element to that. Right? Why who says A is influencing B? B maybe is influencing A. La sakadatech tichtib al olat tamid yaaseh venisko. My kamarachamana midi dechatat shede aola. So what does this mean? Al olat tamid. So it's telling the harachaman. God is telling you something that is chatat put on the olah, right? Al olah tamid. So olah is the basic thing, and you're now just adding one part. A part of it should be a little bit as a chatat. Okay, so that concludes that section, and now we're just going to begin this discussion regarding another contradiction between two mishnayot. We're going to see Mishnah in Tamid as is describing this area, and there's another Mishnah that's describing the same area but in a different way in Mishnah Midot. Let me show you on the map what area we're talking about. here. This is called Lishkat Bet HaMoked. Moked means the fire chamber. It sounds like Harry Potter, or the hearth. So this would have a fire all the time in the middle, and the Kohanim they have to walk barefoot all the time, and the floor is all marble. So in the winter it could get quite cold. So they would go in there and warm up, right? So that's where the Kohanim could hang out. They could rest, and so they had the fire there always. Now, within this small chamber, what you see is that actually most of it is within the chatzer, and a little bit of it is outside the chatzer. So that's very important because there's entirely different rules. Someone who is tameh cannot be in this area. They got to get out of there. And so by going into this thing, they can actually exit. And there was a place where they could go to the mikveh. And so we're going to learn about these 4 subchambers that are within this chamber. That's what we're discussing. So Tanan Hatam in Mishnah Masechet Tamid. Amar lahem ha-memuneh se'u ve'habiyu taleh milishkat bet ha-telaim. So there is a chamber of sheep in there. They would keep 6 sheep there all the time for the korban tamid, so that they always have some ready. And so when it was the time, the person who's directing the traffic would say, bring a lamb from that place. So and where was that? It was in the northwest. Here you go. On the side northwest. This was the chamber of the lambs. And what else was there? The seals, when someone would come and want to buy birds or an animal, they would pay and they would get a receipt, and they could use that receipt to go and pick them up. So those receipts were all kept in this chamber. That's where they were stored. And then here's the hearth. In other words, this whole thing is actually called the Lishkat Bet HaMoked. Within that, there was one section that the Kohanim could hang out in and rest. And this was the bakery where they would make the showbread. Good. So now we have all 4 here. Here's a picture of the inside of the hearth room. So you see they can rest here. These dividers would divide the kodesh and the what's in the kodesh on the chatzer and what's outside of it. And there was also trap doors and things they could go down. There was a whole underground tunnels below that they could go to. Okay, there's the archaeologists are not excavating under there right now. I spoke to someone who there's kind of secret things. All right, I shouldn't talk about that. Urminhu. Now the question is, Joel, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, this whole thing is in that little piece you showed in the map. It just seems like it's a teeny
quite
area.
Small. Yeah, I was wondering also about the size. This might be just a drawing. Somebody made this up, but we don't really know that anything that looks like that. I mean, really, all you need there is 6 sheep. That doesn't take up much room, and you need a little, a little oven, and just have to make a few loaves of bread. So you don't really need that much room for these items. So I think this artist is taking a little bit of a liberty and making it look a lot bigger there. Okay. Now we have a contradiction because there's another Mishnah, Masechet Midot, that describes 4 chambers in here, but in a slightly different way, and puts the lamb one in a different place. And they looked like rooms that were open to a central hall. Traklin would be like in someone's main dining room or living room where they would invite their guests and everybody would sit around. And on the sides, there were smaller chambers that you can go into. So that's what this looked like. Shetayim b'kodesh, shetayim b'chol. 2 of them were actually in the chatzer and were kodesh, and therefore you had to be very, higher level of there. And 2 were in chol, where someone who became tameh, they can go out there. And you had these little wooden blocks that would separate so that you would know which side you were on. What did they use each of them for? Ma'aravit deromit hi hayta lishkat tele korban. So according to this, it's the south west that was for the lamb. So you see, it was down here, and that's different from the one that we just saw. So that's going to be the main question. Then the other ones are Deromit Mizrachiti Dishkashi Osin Balechem Apanim. Okay, you have the showbread, but then that one's over here instead of over here. Mizrachit Sevonim Ganzu Bet Chashmonai Avnei Mizbeach Sheshikesu Malchei Goyim. This is interesting. We didn't see this before. That when the Chashmonaim came in, they had the Mizbeach that used to be there, the original Mizbeach. But the Hellenists came in and they offered a pig and idolatrous sacrifices on the Mizbeach. So when they came, they said, we can't use this Mizbeach anymore, but beforehand it was used for Kodesh. What do we do with it, right? We can't use it, we can't throw it out. And so they kept it in here. So we'll see what to do with when Eliyahu comes. So they kept it in here. And now this doesn't have a place for the receipts, but it could be that they stored the receipts in the same place as here. So this is a contradiction, but we could try to reconcile it. But anyway, that's really fascinating. So and this is where they would immerse. Maybe this is also the place where they had their own little fire and hang out when they needed to warm up. So that's the question. This lamb thing, was it here or was it here? And the answer is, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, this is who is the author of Masechet Midot. That's actually Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. So Masechet Midot is one opinion, and right, that's the second one we saw. And Masechet Tamid is the opinion of everybody else. So there's machloket about where exactly it was, and so we can reconcile it similarly in this way. Baruch Adonai Olam, amen, amen.